Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is me and Paul, and we are going to break down Mississippi State as we do on Tuesdays, and then we will look at some opponent games of interest. But first, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you use promo code IT1, you will get 2 months of an Inside Texas membership for $1 single. All right.
Hey, Connor, instead of me and Paul, we need to come up with like a cool name.
That is going to be kind of tricky. Or maybe just Paul and I can just say it correctly. And
I'm just saying, like,
in the chat, let us know. What are you guys? What's going to be our Batman and Robin name? I get to be Batman.
Aristocrats.
There we go. Is there a position matchup to watch in this game? What should we look for? Sure, we will get into that. Whenever we hit offense and defense, we can try to kind of suss out. I generally don't look at pure matchups, but I think we'll be able to explore that as we go through the numbers and the personnel.
What Connor means is that, Weston, we're going to have to think of one that's relevant.
That's true. Yeah, there's not a lot.
Mississippi State's 1 and 3 for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, on today's show, guys, quick thoughts from ULM, Mississippi State offense breakdown, Mississippi State defense breakdown, and then, of course, opponent games of interest where we look at SEC games coming up and we kind of preview those quickly. All right, Paul, what were you able to gather from the exciting Saturday evening contest versus the ULM Warhawks? What are your takeaways going forward?
I gathered that Texas is a pretty mature, business-like football team, and they're not going to screw around with an inferior opponent. They're going to put them out of commission pretty quickly and dominate on both sides of the ball. Arch Manning obviously got his first start. That got all the press and the attention.
Yep.
Arch has a downfield bias, 14.8 ADOT. That's average depth of target.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a comparison, Quinn Ewers this year, 6.2. So,
and the only one higher, Peyton Thorne at Auburn. So
higher, not maybe a good way, but
it's not a good to have that ADOT. Yeah.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting. Sark after the game said, "Hey, we had a lot of deep shots in our game plan because we thought that's what would hit. We thought that's what they were conceding, but also I do regret not game planning in a few more gimme throws for Arch."
It made me laugh because he said it too. He's like, me and Mill, we were looking at the script and we both kind of noticed, like, hey man, this sure are a lot of shots. And this cracks me up for like $1 million coaches at the end to be like, oh wait, we don't have any short offense in this.
Well, I will say this: Sark was being diplomatic there. Every one of those deep shots also had checkdowns, and you can find a couple of checkdown options, Gunnar Helm or Jaden Blue on some of his misguided throws, maybe where he could have lived for another day. So there you go.
But even Arch, when he threw the post into triple coverage, he still almost hit his receiver in the hands. And so that was the funny part, is even when it's like, Arch, what are you doing? His actual skill still almost saves him. It reminded me of Quinn at Oklahoma State, where you have your first read that's almost always deep, right? And then your second and third, and then your fourth is your final check down. But when you give it to a young quarterback that believes in themselves, man, they're throwing that first read. Like Quinn had Worthy, he has Wingo. Of course he's going to throw it. So it should have been too, like throughout that week of like, all right, man, make sure that, you don't think it's there every single time.
Yeah, I thought the defense played really well. In the first half, to give you an idea of the standard we're holding these guys to now, I thought they didn't tackle very well. They had several missed tackles where the first guy who got there didn't get the guy on the ground. Fortunately for us, there were many, many more Longhorns coming on the way. And ULM actually averaged 2.9 yards after contact, which is pretty respectable.
Yeah.
The bad news for them is the contact was happening behind the line of scrimmage, the first contact, or right at the line of scrimmage. So that 2.9 didn't kill us, and Texas routed the football. That went away in the second half. Texas leveraged the football, populated the football, however you want to call it, really well. And I think that's one of the main contributory reasons that ULM had 10 yards in the second half of offense and just got dominated. It was just a series of 3-and-outs and turnovers. So, yeah, good effort by the defense. The corners continue to be bored out there. They got targeted, I think, 5 times combined, and they gave up a catch for 3 yards. So, yeah, no one's testing Manny Muhammad and Jahdae Barron, and they may not get tested till Georgia, to be honest. So we'll see.
Yeah, I wanted to play against Chapin with Mississippi State because he's willing to throw downfield a little bit, and I wanted to see what that would look like, but we're not going to get that either. Joe Cook, never heard of him, but he seems like a nice guy. PK's track record shows that with a talent advantage and built-up knowledge of his scheme, he can shut down gimmick offenses. Texas has the talent advantage and built-up knowledge of his scheme. Oh, yeah, the backup quarterback, lay the points. That's what I mean. It's just looking like the connectivity between the defense, man. They're big, fast athletes. They're talking. They're moving kind of on a string, moving together. That's what's been really cool as well, to just see how kind of in tune the defense is compared to the previous years.
Our secondary this year, their field IQ is about a 125.
Yeah.
And last year it was around a 95, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And we just purely, some of our safety speed just wasn't there. And that's a big difference too. Do y'all think the CJ Baxter injury caused Sark to play a more spread offense that might benefit Quinn and the team in the long run? I mean, sure, I think you would call technically more runs with Baxter, but the reality is he has 1,000 NFL receivers, and he was saying, hey, we're going to rotate them. And then Quinn's older as well. So I think it was going to be a more passing-focused offense kind of anyways. But I think, yeah, sure, on a third down or something, you might be more likely to pass now than just try to hand it off to a big back in Baxter. What do you think, Paul?
Situationally, I'd agree. Last year, we were a 50-50 run-pass team. This year, we're a 50-50 run-pass team. So against a quality opponent on a 3rd and 2, are we more likely to go play action now? Maybe. But I think that actually has to do with more Quinn Ewers' maturation than necessarily Baxter being injured. So I do think we miss Baxter, and there's some things that I would have really liked to have seen him because people were raving about his improvement. We didn't really get to see the shiny new toy. Had a year of S&C and put on 10 pounds and all that stuff. Yeah. But I don't think the fundamental nature of the offense has changed one bit.
Cool. Sugar Daddy, formerly Texas Beats. Paul, baby, where you been hiding?
I do like 6 of these video shows a week. I'm not hiding at all. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's in the game, y'all. All right, let's look at Mississippi State offense. How about that?
Unless we've got any more questions about ULM, but time to go forward.
Yeah, I think we're good on ULM. Chat, let us know if you have any more questions in that regard. All right, you want to look at numbers first or talk personnel?
You want to just talk broadly about their schedule and then get into the numbers and personnel?
Yeah, we can look at that.
All right. So
I'll pull up their schedule right now.
Yeah, they're 1-3. They beat FCS Eastern Kentucky in the opener. They pounded them, Connor, 56-7. And Mississippi State fans said, "Hey, maybe this isn't a rebuilding year. Maybe this led me guys on to something. This Blake Shapen guy, I think he's a dark horse Heisman candidate."
Yep.
And then they traveled out to the desert, and Arizona State beat them 30-23. That score was not as close as it seems. Arizona State just handed off the football. Cam Scatabo rushed for like 260 yards, and then I think he had another 30 or 40 yards receiving on top of that.
I think they put up like 300 plus with everything.
Yes, crazy. And I think that led to this recent comment from a Texas Tech defender, which if you're getting criticized by Texas Tech, you're in trouble. They said they watched Arizona State versus Mississippi State on film, and he thought the Mississippi State defense had the worst run plan that he'd ever seen. So for a Texas Tech defender to criticize your defense, that's a shot across the bow.
Absolutely.
They then hosted Toledo. That was going to be their get-back game. We've got a MAC opponent. Let's take care of business at home. They got blown out 41-17, and Toledo's defensive line dominated that game. A D-line led by Longhorn great Frank Oakham. So shout out to Frank. And then, of course, they just played Florida, also hosting that. They've had 3 games at home, and they lost that one 45-28. And Florida pretty much took control and dominated that game down the stretch. Although Mississippi State, was game. Florida's not a good football team. So I don't think you could take much. There's no moral victory component to this where if it had been Florida under Tim Tebow that you're like, hey, we hung with these guys and only lost by 17. Absolutely. This is going to be a 4 or 5 win Florida team.
Well, the scary part about Toledo too is they were playing bully ball against Mississippi State late in the fourth. They were like, we're putting together drives and we're running it down their throat. So when G5 teams are running it on 300 pounders and they got hands on hips and they're picking up 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, that's also the thing too, is that a G5 team was able to lean on Mississippi State at the end of the game and run out clock. And so that was a huge thing I noticed versus Toledo. And then, of course, Florida, I think, ran for 250 as well on Mississippi State. So we'll see when we break down their defense. They cannot stop the run or the pass, actually, but it's I don't know. Correct. Yeah, they have that balance. Yeah, they don't want to be out of whack. They want to be bad across the board. So that's going to be kind of the tricky part. I don't know where Mississippi State is going to be able to find that win. Who do they got? Texas. I think Texas is going to win that. Georgia. I think Georgia will likely win that. A&M, Arkansas. Oh, UMass. Here we go. We got one.
I think they are going to take down UMass, mostly because UMass is really bad this year. But yeah, their schedule, everyone talks about Florida's schedule. Mississippi State, man, they're at Texas, at Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee.
Yeah,
those might be. I mean,
Missouri.
That's probably Missouri's not bad. Those four that I just mentioned are four of the best 5 teams in the country. So this is not good for Mississippi State, and it looks like they are going to be starting the true freshman quarterback. So
yeah, they will. I watched the press conference, and they said they'll probably sub or try to get quarterbacks play in the game, but Van Buren will be the one getting the start. And he's a pretty fun quarterback. Went and watched his huddle. He played at some prep academy somewhere on the Atlantic coast or somewhere out there, and they played a national schedule. They played like DeSoto, I think, or Duncanville, one of those two. So he's a pretty fun quarterback. We'll talk about him a little bit. But let's look at the Mississippi State offense. Let me share this screen for you guys. All right. So this is a modified veer and shoot, which, if you guys don't know the background, Lebby is son-in-law to Art Briles, and he was there at Baylor for the creation of the veer and shoot. But it's not as pure veer and shoot as I would even say like Tennessee. They like to run more. They kind of mix it up more than just pure wide receivers at the way out on the sidelines all the time. So here are the numbers. They're kind of Christmas tree, right? They do some stuff well, they do some stuff not well, and they're kind of just discombobulated. And but the offense had some bright spots when Shapen was around. And of course, if you guys didn't know, Shapen's out for the season with a shoulder injury, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that. We haven't exactly played Murderer's Row other than at Michigan, but a lot of this is influenced heavily by Eastern Kentucky in that opener. I mean, just some of the rankings and stuff. I think over time you're going to see these numbers all move red. So
I agree. Yeah, it's about to become free fall. So points per game, 85th in the nation. Tempo is pretty good, right? 24th, which makes sense with a veer and shoot. So they're
pretty fast.
And they like to switch it up, right? They're not pure just tempo all the time, but they'll have drives where they're moving hyperspeed and they're trying to get you stuck in a certain personnel group or whatever. And so they'll take advantage of that. So that is interesting.
One thing Lebby is really good at, and actually PK struggled with a little bit last year against OU, frankly, is in a situational spot, 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 11. You've got a certain personnel group out there. If they convert, they just run the next plays and they don't let you sub out.
Right.
And they really take advantage of that. And, the speed just itself can really be a problem in terms of substitution, guys getting tired out. And that is one of the contributory reasons that Texas gave up an end of half touchdown against OU and an end of second half game-winning touchdown to OU. They couldn't handle that pace, and they couldn't handle sort of the rotations and exhaustions that some of the players were experiencing. So that's something that Texas has to look out for. Interestingly, Homer, that's something Nansen excelled at when he was at Arizona, coordinating their defense. Really good use of packages and also instant substitutions. So he would have his guys ready to go on the sideline. He wouldn't kind of sit and wait and look and say, well, what are they doing? Who are they bringing in? Nansen just knew by down and distance who he wanted in, and he didn't care. So interesting thing to look for.
Yeah, I had no idea. That is interesting, and that's going to be important. Yards per play, even though they run a lot of plays, they're not picking up chunks, right? So 82nd minute, yeah. So they're not doing great there. They have had some success with some good explosivity, right? 36th in the nation. That's overall. All right, rushing offense, 52nd in rushing attempts per game. So they have been running it often, but this is the big problem, right? 107th in yards per rush. They're averaging 3 yards.
Yeah, but they do it a lot.
Yeah. So they're just trying. They can just get 3 yards, but still, 3-3-3 is still 4th and 1. Rush yards a game, 100. I don't really care about yards per game. I care more about
efficacy.
Yeah. So rushing success rate is interesting. They're able to kind of pick up positive yardage enough. It's just not a lot.
Yeah, one thing I notice about, and we'll talk about this in a moment as we go to passing offense, they give up a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures, but because of the nature of the splits, they don't give up a lot of negative run plays when they run the ball. So kind of interesting. I think Texas might be the first defensive front that they play where if we want to play them that way, where we attack those gaps and really exploit them instead of fear and respect them as most teams do. Yep. I think Texas might rack up a bunch of TFLs in this game if the game plan allows.
Yeah, and so fans know the veer and shoot, they're putting those wide receivers way out by the sidelines, and what that's doing is basically lightening the box for the run game. And so it can help you out and benefit that way. And if you, like Paul says, if you respect that, then you're giving advantage to them. But if you say, I don't care, that could be a big difference. So they are able to move forward enough so far, which is interesting. And they have done well in rushing power success rate and short yardage, which I was surprised to see because normally teams like this they have 11 new starters on offense. Nobody has played together, including the offensive line, right? And so that was what I thought was interesting is they've been able to move the ball when they need to, and then they kind of get their yards in the run game through explosivity. So every now and again, they'll get loose. They have a back that's important to know, Devon Booth. He is kick return for them. So good speed. Down to down, doesn't do a great job. I think he's a Utah State transfer. But he has good burst, and you'll see it for a second. But down to down, none of the backs have been able to do a lot. And they play this kind of committee approach. So Kevon Lee, Devon Booth, and Johnny Daniels are the 3 backs you guys need to pay attention to, and they almost play equal amounts. But it's nobody really gets going in this system either. I mean, it's a new back every drive or every other play type of thing. So that's important to know. But the rushing offense, even though they have a lot of green here, key marker we're going to look at is yards per rush, and they're still 107th in the nation. All right, y'all. And of course, the passing offense is what everyone wants to see. But before we are able to do that, I want to hear a quick word from our sponsor, the one and only Laura Baker.
I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
Good stuff. And speaking of LC, on the live last night, Ian theorized Sark may be willing to win by 10 as opposed to winning by 35. If that means he can rotate more players in, what are your thoughts? I think why it seems like winning by 35 would allow you to get more players in.
Yeah,
than winning.
I'd like to know the full context of that. I don't know. Sometimes the secondhand reporting, Eric Naleen said, "What do you think about that?" And then I find out Eric didn't say that. So I don't know. I think getting up big is how you get a bunch of players in the game. So
That'll be the trick. But also, we never agree with Ian anyways. I've never heard a correct take from him.
Yeah, that's right.
Coach Hutzler was once on the Texas staff and is the D coordinator for Mississippi State. That is correct. We will talk about him when we break down the defensive side of the ball.
Coleman Hutzler. He's a old Will Muschamp protege.
Yeah. And I don't know why he picked this job to cut his teeth at DC. It's not going to end well, but he's a good guy from what I hear. All right, so passing offense. This was Blake Shapen. A lot of people are not aware that Blake Shapen was quietly the second graded quarterback in the SEC. So he was able to do some pretty good stuff, just moving the ball forward, just fourth-year guy stuff.
Oh, I thought you meant he was throwing like a second grader.
No. But you're correct. It's all just kind of moving the ball.
Okay.
But that's what he's been able to do. And so you just kind of see the veteran stuff of like, he knows where he's throwing. There's some confidence there, that kind of stuff. He has his fatal flaw. Like Blake Shapen's had this through Baylor. When the moment matters, though, like in the third or the fourth, when it's time to put together that drive, he fails every time. There's like an interception or a fumble or something very dumb. And he's done that throughout Baylor time as well. So he had this kind of fatal flaw that like he could never, when it counted, make the play. But as far as just like distributing the ball and stuff, he did well. Really high level. I think he was graded first in SEC for intermediate. He was the fourth graded deep passer. So he was doing a good job for that offense through his experience. But of course he went down and he's out. So we're about to see a very different version of this passing offense with their freshman that's now at the helm. Passing attempts per game, 37th, 34th in yards per pass, 8.1, not bad. And passing success rate, little middle of the pack here, not bad, not good. And then passing explosivity, they actually did pretty well in. And that's because they have a couple of receivers here that are worth mentioning. So Jordan Mosley he doesn't have any elite trait, but good route technician. You saw him do that kind of post-up fade versus Florida if you watched the Florida game in the end zone. But he's been solid. I noticed him most like coming back to the sticks, that kind of stuff. One you need to pay attention to is Mario Craver. He's a freshman, but he's their fastest guy. I think I noted his 100. I did. He is their fastest guy with a 10.7 100 meter.
Oh, at least it's on an 11.8, like Samaj Morgan from Michigan.
Exactly, and that was their speed. Bring in the speed.
Who's our speed guy? He's slower than – so when I was a senior in high school, we had the fastest girl in the country in the 100 meter. She could run an 11.2, 11.3.
Yeah.
Stacy Clack, older sister of Chris Clack, UT basketball great.
Yeah.
And none of the guys on our football team wanted to race her. That's
yeah. She'll get you.
There was no upside to winning, and there was only downside when she would dust you.
Yeah, it cracked me up. That's that Big Ten speed. But he's 10.7, so Craver, and he's a limited route tree, young guy, right? You'll see him a lot on quick end breakers, quick slants. They'll try to hit him in the end zone, that kind of stuff. He can beat his guy across his face pretty quickly. And then also they'll run him for the deep shot. So be aware of Craver. And then Kevin Coleman, recruiting fans, you guys will be all familiar with Kevin Coleman. A few years ago, he was a Texas target. I don't know how serious we were about getting him, but he was in the mix. He went to Jackson. Is it Jackson State where Dion was?
He was at Louisville.
Well, he went to Jackson State first.
Yeah.
And then he went to Louisville.
He's got a suitcase. It's got some wear and tear on it.
Yeah, but you got to think yak when you think Kevin Coleman. So they're going to throw a screen to him, something short, and then you're going to miss your tackle, and he can house it at that point. So you need to be aware of Kevin Coleman. I thought he was faster than he was. I watched a news article on him, and they were talking about his speed. I've seen the highest verified speed is 11.3, but I don't think that's true when you watch him on the football field.
He's quick.
Yep. And then, Paul, you mentioned pregame. Kelly Akari. He was a 1,000-yard receiver at UTEP. UTEP's been putting out guys, man. Who was it? Jacob Cowling or whatever before, but
for Arizona.
Yeah. So he's a 1,000-yard receiver at UTEP, and he doesn't get a ton of targets yet. But Paul, I think you said he was injured early on.
Yeah, he was injured. I think he was going to be their field stretcher. He averaged like 23 yards a catch at UTEP. He was their deep threat, and he was hilarious, Connor. So I did if you read the 2024 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football, still available. He had something like a 30% big play catch rate like
Mm.
either a touchdown or 25-yard plus catch on almost a third of his catches. But he had a 19% drop rate. So
Okay. Feast
a
or famine.
fifth of the balls that hit him in the hands hit the ground. So he was feast or famine, as Eric pointed out so delicately. Brett Venables standing next to Josh Heupel, feast or famine.
Yeah. And then they have a tight end that's a really intriguing player. I think you guys will notice him on the field. Seydou Traore. He is originally from London, England, and he played at the NFL Academy there. They liked him, of course, so he came over to Florida. I think Clearwater, honestly. He came to Florida, and then he went to Arkansas State. He led Arkansas State in yards. I don't know if I noted this. It's just in my breakdown. No, I think he led him in yards and touchdowns. Then he went to Dion's Colorado for like a cup of coffee. I don't even know if he played. And then he went to Mississippi State and had to sit out last year due to some reason. I don't think it was like a discipline issue. I think it was a technicality of transfer rules. And so he's really interesting. 6'4", 235, redshirt junior. Good athlete, man. Great mover for his size. When he catches the ball, you'll be impressed. He had a attempted hurdle, I think, versus Florida. Very athletic. The key to evaluating Traore is watch him when he doesn't have the ball. He's not blocking hard. He doesn't know his blocking assignments very often. And if he's not going to be like in the progression or the read side, he's not running his route hard.
So basically OU's tight end.
Sure. Yeah. So it's like that. I say in the breakdown that he's a great athlete. He's not a great football player. So
hey, I like the advanced stats. I'm a proponent. And I like to tease and abuse poor Joe Cook when he does raw counting stats.
Yeah.
Proof points. But there is value in actually looking at them, especially when you only have 4 data points of football games. As I said, I think the Eastern Kentucky game queers the data a little bit.
Of course it will. Yeah.
Because let's just look at these raw stats, Connor. Against Arizona State, they gave up 4 sacks, a forced fumble, 2 quarterback hits, and there were 5 pass breakups. Okay, that's Arizona State. Against Toledo, who they hosted, sacked 5 times, another forced fumble, 3 quarterback hits, 4 pass breakups. Florida, not exactly a murderer's row defense there. 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles by the Gators, 4 quarterback hits, 7 pass breakups. So to have that many pass breakups and that many sacks against basically D's that, you know, there's not a guy that would start for Texas on those defenses. So that's intriguing to me. And it tells me that we're about to either get a lot of pressure or have a lot of attempts on the football in the air, either a pass breakup or an interception. So
yeah, 11th ranked pass blocking offensive line in the SEC.
Yes. And I think that may be underselling it, because when I watch them with just my eyes subjectively, there's a reason these guys transferred out from their old schools. And it's not because they were superstars. 2 of their 5 offensive line starters were reserves at their previous stop.
Yeah, the center's from North Texas.
The center was a starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you scroll up, I can tell you about these guys since I'd already scouted them in the summer.
Here's the O-line.
There you go. So Ethan Miner actually is an experienced player. He's actually one of their better players. Jacoby Jackson split time at Texas Tech. He was a 50-50 player. Marlon Martinez was a career reserve at LSU.
Yep.
Albert Reese, not a guy who's ever played. And then Michaelan Pounders epitomizes the Memphis football player. And if you know anything about Memphis and you watch them give up 56 to Navy on Saturday because they didn't realize that Navy ran the option, that was informative. So this group is not great, and that's the problem. Is nowadays every offensive line, you may have noticed, like I've been doing these scoutings a long time, like you, Connor, and it used to be in the day you'd see an offensive line and they averaged like 280, 6'2". And you're like, oh, this is a bad O-line. Look, they're so small. Now, even the bad O-lines have a bunch of dudes who are 6'6", 6'7", 330. But the question is, can they move their feet? Do they have any skill? Can they get low? Can they leverage? And the answer for Mississippi State's O-line is no. So, I in a way, Levy and his offense have done a lot of good work to compensate for a lot of mediocre and sub-mediocre football players.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, what's the story on their freshman quarterback included recruiting rankings? So
I actually know this.
Cool.
So Van Buren played at St. Francis in Maryland, which is one of these sort of national programs that plays everybody, plays IMG, scheduled schools all over, goes out to Mater Dei and gets pounded. He was the starter, played a lot of football. He is a true freshman. He is mobile, but not a runner, which as a freshman quarterback means he will end up running.
Correct.
whether he wants to or not. But he's not, a 4.4 40 guy. He's got a pretty good basic throwing motion, and his mechanics are good. He's kind of got like some gamer to him. He was a 3 or 4 star depending on the service. So he was either high 3, low 4, depending on which is your preferred service. And he's a guy that they like long term because he's, there's maybe almost like a Spencer Rattler to him in the sense that he's just got that arm talent. Very poised.
That's what he's going to do.
He's quick.
He's going to sidestep, and he's going to get locked into a target downfield. So,
and you saw he stepped up.
Yep.
He didn't bail out the back. He didn't do the Pat Mahomes, let me go back 15 yards. And if you're Pat Mahomes, you can do that. Everyone else can't. So that is the thing that people like about him. He's kind of slick. If you watch him, he looks like a Texas system high school quarterback, right? Like one of these guys that's been plugged in and playing ball since in the same offense since 5th grade. So
this is what we got to watch.
Athletic, but he prefers not to run.
Yeah, he'll play quarterback first. But like what I see here is like you're going to want a lot of rollouts for him.
Yep.
You're going to want to keep him moving, and then he's going to be really frustrating on 3rd downs if you play man because he's going to be looking for the deep shot. He's going to be moving around, stepping up in the pocket, and if it's not there, he's going to be able to pick up that first. So there's like going to be some light value in a spy there because I think he'll be able to kind of do freshman unorthodox stuff that might be able to frustrate us. Not that he's going to put up 300 yards, not what I'm saying, but on some key downs and stuff, clearly mobile enough to make stuff happen and willing to throw the deep ball when he locks on.
Keep stepping up. I love seeing that in a young quarterback. The downside, you probably are noticing, he puts a lot of air under the ball, even on intermediate routes. Yeah. So this guy does not, Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning aren't feeling threatened by his arm strength anytime soon.
Right.
But nice touch on the ball. And, I think the structure of their offense is going to lead to a lot of opportunities for the Texas secondary. But look at that arc. So in a sense, that's great. It's a very catchable ball. Also shows you, I don't think he could throw it on the line if he wanted to. So that is going to present some issues because when you've got closing speed at safety, when you've got corners that are locked down as we have, you putting all that air and time under the ball is not always a good thing.
Yeah. But he's interesting, man. It's like it's like, hey, let's check him out in year 3, year 4, right? And so
sometimes they'll describe like old school recruiting guys, but he's a classy young quarterback.
Yeah.
He's classy. Like he's got all these little subtle quarterbacking things that he does.
Yeah.
Even though his raw tools are, average. But
and he led 2 good drives when he came in. That's important too.
Yeah.
He
did.
So that'll be interesting. I think the most frustrating part here is going to be, though, whenever he's able to pick up that first down because we thought we had everyone covered and he's able to move with his legs. And like you said, him stepping up in the pocket. I mean, if that guy's open, he's willing to fight through it and try to throw the ball. So we still might get the deep ball just because young quarterbacks, like you saw with our Arch Manning, it's hard for them to get off that first read. And so that first read is normally your deepest read. So,
the structure of their offense, a lot of it's timing based, a lot of it's automatics. You line up a certain way, you take a step back and you throw the ball. And he's going to do that. And that's going to create some opportunities for them, but it's going to put the ball in peril quite a bit, particularly if we play defense the way I think we are, at least on important downs. You want to disrupt Mississippi State's guys at the line of scrimmage. You want to get your hands on them. You want to press them. And with Muhammad and Barron out there, and then Taff and Makuba breaking on the ball, I think there's going to be some turnover opportunities.
Yeah. So, and it is interesting. Did Levy recruit him or he came in too late? No, he wouldn't have been able to. It's not a Levy guy, right?
Don't know.
Yeah. That's always interesting to me. But yeah, it's like we said, not a bad quarterback. Don't think you're just dealing with like some scrub. Like he looked good when Florida came in. He's just a young quarterback. All right. But I liked what he was able to do several times. All right, we'll get back to offense here. Share screen. All right. But be aware, they have receivers enough. So pay attention to the tight end. He's the second most targeted. And then your first most targeted, Kevin Coleman. And then be aware of this Mario Craver freshman on the deep ball because he can beat corners. I've seen him. I've seen it. All right. Passing offense, like we said, they did pretty good. Now that Blake's out, how are we going to be able to these numbers are about to turn red, most likely. So overall, putting everything together, OFEI, they think they're the 86th ranked offense in the country. Pretty good on third down, though. That's interesting. That'll change with a freshman quarterback. Pretty good on fourth down. Not good at finishing in the red zone, though. So they can get the field goal, but not a lot of touchdown. So
a lot of empty calorie offense.
Yeah, 100%. And then you want to hit the defense?
Yeah, let's hit the defense. Everyone else has.
That's a good one. Wait up, UT boy. We have a, of course. It has
Jesus Christ.
I know. Paul, could you please explain what Jonte brings to UT? Okay.
He brings an avid fan base, UT boy. That's what he brings.
Yep.
He's a good route runner. He's very quick, and he's a nice addition to that receiving group.
That throw that Quinn threw versus UTSA early in the game where Jonte caught it on that quick slant and ran to the post. His acceleration even surprised me there.
SNC's been good for Jonte. He was not, like a crazy – he wasn't Ryan Wingo in high school, right, in terms of crazy just like physical explosiveness and RPMs. But, it's coming along, and he's got a lot of quickness. He's a natural route runner, great hands.
There's a Jonte article on IT this morning. UT boy, get over there.
Get over there, UT boy. Or are you just a creature of video?
Yep. Check it out. All right. Defense. Now,
do you remember that scene in The Shining where they're in the hallway and the elevator opens up and blood just comes pouring down? Yep. I kind of feel like what we're looking at right here.
Yep. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. The only weird thing is they're good at not giving up explosive plays.
They're good at giving up repeated.
That's right. They're good at death by 1,000 cuts. I don't need to throw the post. We're bludgeoning you to death.
Yeah, I just could check it down for 9 on every down.
Exactly. There's no reason to try to run explosive plays. All right, opponent points per game, 113th in the country.
Help me. I'm an idiot here. Explain to me why that's 38.7 if they've given up 31 per game.
I do not know. Let's see. Oh, they're probably does your stats include FCS?
Oh,
my stats don't include FCS.
No, actually, yeah, it does. I'm just looking at Mississippi State's website.
Does it? Because right here on team rankings, when I pull it up, it does not include Eastern Kentucky.
I'm going to get my calculator out.
Check it out.
No, they give up 31 points a game.
All right, let's see. I can pull it up on team rankings.
So everything you've shown us is a lie. Yes. And I just
remember when we said last week
you live, Connor.
Last week, remember when it would just be funny if I just made up all my stats?
Yes. For years, all of Texas Homer's previews have just been made up stats.
Completely made it up. All right, so
they are 15th in blah blah blah.
So this is teamrankings.com. And they have right now Mississippi State at 38.7.
Weird.
Yep. Ranked 113th.
Odd.
In the country.
Oh, well. Go up to the top there, Connor.
Yeah, let's see where Texas is at.
Do the first possible. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, first in the country. There's a
number one.
Yep. But
look at all the SEC teams.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And look at the Army Black Knights, number 8. Hell yeah.
All right. So 38.7, 113th in the country. Paul's fake stats say differently. Opponent plays per game, 97th. So people are able to just, like we said, death by 1,000 cuts.
This is a bad one.
Yeah. Opponent yards per play, 6.4 yards per play. That's a first down every 2 plays. Not good. D success rate. So people are just able to consistently, like we said, just anything they want to do, it's automatic. And this is overall. So this means whatever play you're picking, it's going to be good. I remember one time in high school, I was in the press box. I went to Denton Ryan, and we were playing one of our rivals, not Guy or DHS, and they're historically awful. And the coaches in the press box, they had their play sheet, and they put it up on the window, and they took their pen and they threw it, and whatever one it hit, they would run it, and we scored on it.
Oh,
and that's kind of it. And that's what Mississippi State kind of feels like, where you could just close your eyes, whatever play you hit, you're going to score on defense.
Brutal.
But they do have the weird outlier of people aren't hitting explosives. But right, there's also not a lot of motive to try to throw the deep ball on them or any of that.
Wow, they inflict no havoc. They're not disruptive in any way. They're not putting offenses in 2nd and 13.
Right. UTSA versus Mississippi State, who wins?
Oh, I probably would take UTSA on a neutral.
So would I. With Shapen, I can argue differently a little bit, but this iteration, I'm taking UTSA. All right. So that's the base offense. Paul, before we hit defensive rushing, would you like to tell us about your dear friend?
Yeah, if we had a spreadsheet of Connor's dork stats and we had the rankings of mortgage guys in the great state of Texas, you know what we'd see? What color, Connor? For Gabe Winslow?
We'd see green.
We'd see green, the darkest, deepest, most beautiful pine green you've ever seen. And we'd see a bunch of number ones because that's what Gabe is. He's number one. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Find out why. Hey, if you have bought a house in the last couple of years and you were subject to the higher interest rates that, of course, we were afforded and graced by with inflation, you need to refi. Gabe will refi you for free. In other words, he will take your current payment and he will lower it hundreds of dollars, and you will not pay a dime for that process. This sounds like a trick. It must be a trick. I don't know. He tricked me, and he's tricked about a dozen other people who have taken up on this offer, and they've all benefited from it and written me really nice thank you notes. So call Gabe, find out how he can do this for you, get that refi in, get your rate down, and take some more of your money and go give us super chats and go buy Texas tickets. Reach him at 832-557-1095 and enjoy the sea of green on the data of the mortgage broker spreadsheet.
Yeah, I got some good advanced stats on Gabe. I'll show you guys later.
That's right.
I track the mortgage markets, and he's elite.
They're also made up.
Yeah. And then let's look some more of my stats. I had some fun with these ones. I was really making these ones up. They were a blast. So opponent rush attempts per game, 128. So teams are basically just been able to run out the second halves on them. And also you can just run on them whenever. It's kind of whenever you feel like it. Pick your poison. So
yeah, it's not a good sign when teams run out the clock on you and they're still averaging 5.4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Like, because you know they're running, you should be able to slow that down a little bit.
Yep. And that is not the case. All right, so opponent yards per rush, 103rd, 5.4 yards per rush.
But they never break the big run, Connor. They're never dropping that 70-yarder. It's only 11-yarders.
Yep. And that's what's also got to be more brutal. Because, we can do what we did with us at UTSA. It's like, well, we only gave up that 150-yarder. You can tell yourself that. It's brutal when they're just beating you to death. Defensive rush success rate, like we said, death by 1,000 cuts. Defensive line is not doing a good job here. What is interesting, again, they have some weird, things you wouldn't expect sometimes. They're pretty good on, defensive rushing success rate. So on short yardage, for whatever reason, they can kind of stand up against you. And then defensive rush explosivity, they keep a cap on those long runs. Like we said, normally that would be a really good thing, but if every other part of your run defense is red, then it won't matter. But Texas is one of the worst rushing offenses in the country. So it's interesting statistically, right? We wouldn't expect Texas to be able to start popping those explosive runs this game. Feel good about it, Paul? That's it. It is what it is.
I mean, yeah. Let's go down to passing.
Yeah. All
right. This is the key: opponent yards per pass and opponent pass success rate. Everything else irrelevant. Yeah. So when an opponent drops back to throw, what's their yards per attempt? Well, 8.3. That's not good to surrender that.
No.
And then what's their success rate? That's not just a completion. It also means, did you get a first down? it's better than just a completion, right?
No, this is not a tiered, like if you got half your yards on first down. This is just a positive EPA play. So
Okay.
we're able to move the offense forward.
Okay. So they're 127th in the country in limiting offensive pass success rate.
Yeah.
That's not good.
You can do whatever you want. Like we said, weird thing again, they're not giving up explosive pass, but also as a coordinator, you don't need to call deep shots here. You're winning by 30 in your G5 Toledo. Homer loves Shaping like UT boy loves Cook. I do like Shaping. I do like him. But I said he's more of an idea to me. He's a tragic figure.
He's a metaphor.
Yeah, he really is, because it's just like you can do things right in these short passing offenses, but he always fails at the end for whatever reason. So to me, he's more like a literary figure. I kind of, I try to not be Shaping in this world.
He is a Cormac McCarthy character.
Exactly. Yeah. It always ends tragically for whatever reason.
He ends up being cannibalized and scalped by Comanches at the end of the story.
Yep. All right. What's truly amazing is they're just this week hitting the tough part of their schedule. Are you talking about us or are you talking about Mississippi State? Because
Mississippi State. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, they're out to play us and Georgia.
That's right. So here, Scott, that's a great point. I promise you, because every fan base goes through their little schedule and they take a little marker and they're like WL, WW, toss up, 50-50, L. Oh, we'll definitely win this one. I guarantee you Mississippi State fans had them at 3-1 right now.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And they're 1-3. And now they got to go to Georgia.
I know.
They got to go to Texas. They got to go to Tennessee. They got to go to Ole Miss. It's just brutal.
I was listening to one of their YouTubers, smart guy. It's every fan base does this, by the way. So I'm not knocking him specifically, but he was talking to an SEC guy, and he was basically saying, like, look, everyone says that we're supposed to be really bad this year, but I think we got some receivers and stuff like that. And they did that. I was like, don't do it to yourself, man. It's year one. I did the same thing with Sark at 5.
Yeah, and it's funny is guys never do that. It's always like, we've got these receiver, or we got this transfer. It's never we have 5 senior O linemen.
Right.
3 of them have NFL grades, and they've started a combined 180 games. Skill guys, I think it'll work themselves out. You never hear that take from the overly optimistic, but that's actually the infrastructure you need to actually be a good team and surprise.
Yeah, it's always like, well, that receiver, I mean, he was G5, but really he's ready.
Hugo was, he's been kicked out of 3 schools, but the dude ran a 10.5 in high school.
Yeah, and I was like, don't do this to yourself, man. So overall defense, 82nd in the country. So this is also a big problem. Situational defense, 112th in the country in third down, 117th in fourth down. All right.
So this is against the situation from the Jersey Shore reality show?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good defender. These are advanced stats, Paul. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He's a good defender. I didn't realize what a good defender he was.
Yeah. They're almost all situation based.
Jim Tan Laundry, man.
Yeah. I used to love that show when I was like 13 years old. I was like, man, that's the height of excellence. If you can get to that point in life, you can get to that point. If you can live near boardwalks, I think you're doing all right.
That's the answer in the Conan movie of Conan, what is best in life?
Yeah.
Like Jim Tan Laundry, bro.
Yeah. I have no Italian background, but I was like, I can try to live that lifestyle. Red zone defense, 68th, not bad, right? Middle of the pack, white stat, just right.
I like you're such a rosy, optimistic guy. The sea of red, horrific hundreds rankings.
Yep.
You pick the one thing that's 68th, and you're like, not bad, huh? Pretty good here.
I mean, that's the only, because I'm only thinking of ways they could hurt us potentially. So it's like there's no shot on any of these. Maybe they stop us one time in the red zone. That's all.
So far, here's some good red zone data for you, data boy. Texas, 23 red zone trips this year, 21 scores.
Yeah.
21 touchdowns.
Yeah.
1 field goal, 1 fumble by Jarrett Gibson. Those are our 23 red zone trips.
It's incredible, especially that turnaround from last year from being one of the worst in the red zone. Like you can tell in the offseason, Sark and Quinn were like, we're not doing that again.
Well, as I said, brilliantly, I might add, the Texas red zone offense is the Texas offense.
Yeah, they're not having to do cute stuff either to make it happen. That's what's nice too. So 132nd returning. Yeah, sacks per game, 129th, averaging 0.3 sacks per game, which doesn't exist. It's not even to a half. So that's.
I think I got 0.3 sacks once in a JV game.
Yeah,
you can guys hit the quarterback at once, and we each got a third of a sack.
Yeah, or you can just run really fast by the quarterback, and sometimes they'll give you 0.3. This is crazy. Interceptions per game, 0. 109. They're averaging 0. 119th in the country.
Hey, if they get one, that number goes up markedly.
Yeah, but to be averaging 0 is incredible.
All right. Well, if Arch starts, they may break their streak.
Yeah, they might be able to. Arch is going to go bombs away still.
They may give up 5 touchdowns over the top and mess up all their explosivity stats. But
Jack Burton, I love this question. So would it be okay to be openly confident about this game, even for a very superstitious person?
Yes, Jack. Yeah. We give you permission, and I understand all Texas fans have loved and lost early in the year many, many times. But we have a good football team. I pronounce us good. And I pronounce Mississippi State bad. Therefore, when good football teams that are focused and mature play bad football teams and they host them at their home place in the SEC opener in front of 103,000, Texas wins the game.
When Mississippi State's starting quarterback is out for the year as well. So, yeah, Jack, I'm normally with you. In the previous seasons, I was always kind of antsy. But, yes, Texas is in a different tier right now. And Mississippi State, of course, is on the opposite end of that spectrum.
But what if Van Buren represents an even more bold metaphor than
a more powerful idea of redemption? He's the phoenix. He's rising from the shape and ashes.
That's right.
Make sure to like the video.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure to do that. That's a good
idea. Did you write that?
No. So that's what's even more incredible. It's kind of like, wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, do all those things. If you're listening to this on a podcast, go on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Give us 5 stars.
Yep. All right, y'all. And then quick, special teams is all right. Not a very disciplined team either. A lot of penalties per game.
Hey, our special teams have kind of sucked so far. What's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Kind of weird because that's what even like our kick coverage. I was always really impressed with that. And then of course our ability to return. Bolden is just giving everything he's got to try to make that happen.
Forwards, backwards, laterally.
He will fumble one if he keeps playing that game. Every show I'm going to say it. George is going to make us pay for that. But yeah, that's the only thing that's hilarious. So this is the defensive side of the ball. I would normally kind of try to pick out guys for you. There's not a lot here. Isaac Smith, he's the one that got hit in the Florida game and went out. He's a really good run defender in the secondary for them at free safety. Stone Blanton has a legendary SEC linebacker name.
He actually is a transfer. He was a starter for South Carolina and then either was encouraged out or transferred out. I'm not sure which.
Yeah. So not a lot. The defense is really bad, guys. And when your defense is really bad, it's normally because your personnel's not too hot either. And like we said, Coleman Hutzler is leading that unit. Watch out for Kevin Coleman in the punt return.
Hey, did you formulate this depth chart from their most recent game?
So what I'll do is if they in their game notes on their website, they give a depth chart, I think, for Mississippi State, and then I'll go and verify, whoever started, and then I'll also then go on PFF and verify there. So I have 3 kind of tiers to which I kind of make sure.
Because I'm noticing a couple of guys that are not starting for them anymore that were starters at the beginning of the year. And I don't think it's injury. It's Mississippi State. They may have already failed out.
Yeah, you have to be careful because coaches a lot of times their depth chart is not true. So what they put out, so you kind of have to just look for like overall snaps, and PFF will also help you. Depth charts are not that easy or as easy as you'd think they would be whenever you're trying to actually put a good one together. Let me see. Do they suck or are they just not as good as last year? Will Stone might tell the tale. Already 18 touchbacks. He had 26 in 2022 and 49 in 14 games in 2023. He's on pace to blast through that.
Yeah, Will Stone's done a good job kicking, and his legs gotten stronger every year. So good job to Will. We were not addressing Will Stone's kickoffs when we're degrading.
Yeah, we're talking about we're doing the thing where we're talking about special teams, but really we just mean did they score touchdowns on punt returns?
Or why are we getting 2 penalties a game on blocks in the back? Amari Niblack.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's just, and the only reason it's market is because it's been so automatic. We haven't even had to think about special teams under Banks.
Well, and usually when we play inferior teams, that's when we're getting punt blocks. That's when we're getting punt return touchdowns. Having Golden as a kickoff returner, that guy's a powder keg about to explode. So he's not just a metaphor; he's a reality.
That's true. That's true.
But his last name is metaphorical.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull it up. Your comment, David. There we go. Paul and Homer, considering the Mississippi State quarterback change and the Texas defensive strength, what do y'all think the percentage breakdown of pass to run will be for Mississippi State against UT? My first thing is they can't run the ball, so it's like you're going to have to pass naturally because you're going to be 3rd and 8s. I don't know how much of those passes get completed. And also I think some of those passes are going to convert to runs when the quarterback scrambles.
And do they want to, if they find themselves down, do they want to throw and make their situation worse if that's not working? Or do they want to kind of lay up, hand the ball off, and get out of town and try to regroup? I'm not sure. They're gonna throw. I mean, they're not going to abandon their core offense. But, part of Levy's offense is simply a box count. Mm-hmm. So if we're playing a light box, they're just going to hand the ball off.
And why not? Why not? If you know they're a bad running team, bait them with a light box. Be like, okay, sure, run into our 6. It's not going to work anyways. So even strategy wise, it's like, okay, give them a light box because they're still not being able to run against light boxes.
Yep.
All right, cool. That is it for our Mississippi State breakdown. But we do have a few games of interest, actually, with actual interest, opposed to last week. Last week was pretty boring. But this week we have some fun games to look at. And Paul will kind of let you know what he's thinking because Paul keeps a good eye around the league. All right, opponent games of interest. Number 1, Kentucky at Ole Miss. Ole Miss at 17.5-point favorites. Oof.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of respect for the old Rebels. Ole Miss has played no one, and they've destroyed every opponent they played. And Lane Kiffin, not shy about hitting the accelerator, trying to win Jackson Dart the Heisman and rack up some stats against bad opponents. So Kentucky, hey, which Kentucky team shows up? The one that took Georgia down to the wire and then Stoops ultimately chickened out when it was a chance to win the game.
That was crazy.
Or the Kentucky team that got thumped by South Carolina. Probably more likely the South Carolina team, but we'll see. And this is the first opponent with at least a pulse that Ole Miss has played. So that's a very interesting game. If it's competitive, I wonder if it's kind of same old Ole Miss, like a lot of smoke and mirrors. But if Ole Miss blows them out, I think that we've got a legit top 5 team.
Cool. This game will be fun.
Oh, God.
For any time doing breakdowns, right? Because we play both of these teams and they're both rivals. So that's definitely a must watch if you're obsessed like we are. Arkansas, Texas A&M. Texas A&M 3.5-point favorites, and it is at Kyle Field.
That is the greatest home field advantage in all of sports, Connor. Are you aware of that? Because if you measure by decibel meter, this game is always wild. Somehow the Aggies always win, even when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And this is at Kyle Field. This isn't neutral, right?
That's what I need to check on because I was like, are they going to play it at Cowboys Stadium? I'll see. Let's look.
I thought that was the whole point, is that they wanted their little Texas OU competitor.
Yeah, let me look.
They wanted their Costco Texas OU.
Let's see. Let us view this.
Let's Google stuff in real time.
Let's do it. All right. I'm going to buy tickets. Southwest, yeah, it's Arlington. It's Cowboys.
Okay, so there it is.
Yep.
So they do not get the greatest home field advantage in all of sports.
Dang it.
Dang.
Yep.
Yeah, I think A&M's won 11 of the last 12 in this game, and they've won multiple games in very improbable ways. Yeah, Sonny, you're right. We should. Is that a kitten?
It's a cat just strutting. You know how it is. More of an idea, more of a metaphor.
More of an ideal.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion on this. I mean, Talon Green got freaking benched at one part against Auburn.
I didn't watch that game. I didn't even know that. I'm going to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Petrino's done some good things with this offense. Sam Pittman still fighting for his job. I think A&M I think the question is, can Arkansas do enough to confound Marcel Reed? Because Reed is an improvement at quarterback for them. How could he not be? He's still young. He still hasn't seen a lot. If I'm Arkansas, I'm like dusting off old like 3 high safety stuff from back in the day. I'm just looking for crazy looks to show this guy that he doesn't really understand.
Call up Odom.
Yeah, and A&M's just going to try to win this game, running the ball and playing defense and hoping Arkansas makes mistakes. Taylor Green is really explosive, but he's explosive in both directions. He's the guy that, like in the Army, when you're throwing a grenade, he's the one who, they always have these YouTube videos of someone who throws it straight up in the air, and then everyone's like, and runs. Yeah. That's Taylor Green. He can throw the grenade out, or he can throw it straight up. So
throw it right into your own bunker. All right, Oklahoma at Auburn. Nothing's really been going on with Oklahoma. No big changes there for them. So
no, business as usual. Jackson Arnold's been efficient. He's been everything he's been promised to be. Auburn,
he's definitely better than that Arch Smith kid.
That's right. If Arch Manning's name was Arch Smith, he'd be a 3-star at best. We know that.
Easy. That was our take. That was our original take that we spread around.
That's right. But because we're biased, we decided he was good after watching his film. Yeah, I mean, OU, if you guys have watched the Joel Klatt breakdown of the OU Tennessee game, it's worth your time. He calls OU's offense mystifying. He says it's the worst thing he's seen on tape in 3 or 4 years, just in terms of the structure of the offense and what they were trying to do in different plays. They did, of course, insert their savior. They're going through the savior cycle.
They are. Yep.
Texas fans are familiar with this, but they brought in the new quarterback. He's going to fix everything.
It's definitely not a systemic. It's not a systemic issue affecting them. It was simply just their quarterback.
That's right. Their offensive line was good. Their calls were good.
All their receivers are not in the hospital currently. I mean, it's just like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's funny. And then Auburn, talk about a back against the wall kind of game. Hugh Freeze recruiting great, on-field results not so great. So they're going to go back to Peyton Thorne, and they're going to
crazy. You can't bench your quarterback and immediately turn it. That's just bad coaching 101.
That's not true. It worked for Jalen Milroe.
That was the one they scapegoated Milroe so hard in that, and then they acted like it was some beautiful lesson, but really they just got pressured from the fans.
The goat scapegoated.
Yep.
On his way out. But yeah, that's going to be a fascinating game. I like the under. I'll say that. I think there's going to be some bad offense put on the field on both sides. And then OU's defense played really well. Yep. So now the question is, was that a 6-week prep game plan that they've been stealing, snaps to prep Tennessee? Can they sustain that kind of thing? We know we'll see something crazy when they play us in Dallas. But
I was glad, too, that they at least had one big game. They could not have just been Texas for the first 6 weeks, like they'll do.
That's a big change that the SEC is going to impose on the OUs of the world who are doing like Texas stuff in spring practice, right? You just can't do that. I mean, you can still do it, but you're going to lose the Auburn game, right? You're going to lose the other big games. So you need to prep for probably your first big opponent, like we did with Michigan.
Yeah.
And then the rest, you got to do it during the season because there's just so many big games that you can't just load up for bear on one.
Paul, OU wins this season over under 7.
So the Vegas win total number most recently was 7.5, and I had bet the under at plus 100. So if they set it at 7, that's not as good a bet. They might push on that, but if you forced me to bet one or the other and the juice was the same on either side, I'd probably take the under, but there's a good chance you push. I don't think they're winning 8. I don't think you're losing that bet, but hey, maybe Hawkins is the second coming. Who knows?
Oh man. And also, that's just not cool to do to that kid. You guys already psychologically destroyed Jackson Arnold. It's like, don't turn this next quarterback into the freshman savior. I mean, Texas did that during our Gerard Hurd, the Shane Buechele era and all that stuff. Everybody was the next savior. And then it was Sam that just showed up and by pure heart was like, I am the quarterback now. So we just got to see kind of how it goes. And finally, we have the coolest game of the week.
Yes, sir.
Georgia Bulldogs versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Georgia, 2.5-point favorites. That's a close line.
Georgia hasn't lost a regular season game since the COVID year, 2020. But against Alabama, they're 1-2, their last 3.
Yeah.
So Alabama's had their number. Now, is that Alabama or is that Nick Saban had the
Correct.
number of his old protege? Also, here's another part. Georgia, if you really look at their schedule, despite playing in the SEC, not a lot of tough road spots in their history. During the regular season, they play neutral site games. They play home games. They haven't had many high-level opponents on the road in the SEC. So this is going to be kind of novel for them. And they're certainly a veteran team. They're certainly accustomed to winning. But that is a different dynamic. The issue that I have here with Bama, they're pretty young in the secondary, and they've been able to hide it. But I don't know if this is a game where they'll be able to hide it just behind crowd noise. So what's the imputed score here? 31-27. Huh?
The advanced stats actually have this as a Bama win by 4.1.
And a lot of offense, apparently.
Yeah. And I think, too, if you look, it's interesting with Georgia. And I looked up this morning. I didn't realize Bama was performing this well. Of course, blue being good. But if you look at Georgia's offensive success rate in the rush, they're the 103rd team, so they cannot run the ball consistently. And they're also having trouble at 85th in the nation in run defense. So this doesn't feel very Georgia-y, right? This is kind of a different Georgia than we're used to. And when you look at these numbers, we kind of just assume they're going to stop the run and they're going to run it down your throat. And that's just not the case. And it's opening up a window here for Alabama to get this win.
Yeah, the Bulldogs have been banged up. So I'm curious to see who they've been holding back and who they're going to play in this game that have this circled. Other interesting part of this game is how much do you want to run Jalen Milroe in this game? I think I might put the game on his shoulders in the running game. Some quarterback power, quarterback draw. I'd do some different stuff with Milroe running the ball to open up the deep ball because we know he throws a beautiful deep ball.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Here's the other thing that's interesting, and this game has a ton of games within the game. Alabama's really got one receiver, and he's 17 years old. The other guys are.
Did you know he's 17 years old?
I didn't know. Did you know Jordan Shipley's dad was roommates with?
Do you know Charlie Brewer wanted to go to Texas?
But yeah, I think Bama has one receiver, and the rest of the guys are Jags. They're the anti-Texas, where we've got good pass catcher.
We have too many receivers.
So is Georgia just going to bracket their true freshmen and say someone else beat us? That'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and so is Georgia's season on the line here in terms of exposing them as a bit overrated, maybe due to off-field problems? I don't know if it's due to off-field problems. I do think they're a bit overrated.
I mean, in the playoff era, the season's not really ever on the line for one game.
What's tricky, though, is Bama wins this. I think Bama's the number one team in the country because they have the best resume if we throw out preseason stuff.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, so they should be number one, but we don't get to play Bama until the conference. And so ideally, I want Georgia to win. I think we beat Georgia. So I want Georgia to beat Alabama so we can beat Georgia and fully submit it. It will frustrate me, even though I think Bama could easily get the win here, that Bama beats Georgia and we have to wait till the conference to play them. But also the flip side, I don't want to play Georgia 3 times either.
There's nothing more important than being number one in the country in October, Connor.
Well, to me, in my heart, it's the most important thing.
In my heart.
Be number one and stay number one. You ever heard of Ricky Bobby?
It's a good point.
You're not first, you're last. But that is what I think is interesting. But also maybe on the flip side, that'll keep us from playing Georgia 3 times or whatever. But don't be surprised here at all if Bama gets this win.
Second place is first place in a line of losers, Connor.
Yep.
That's what I tell my son every morning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Paul's gentle parenting. That's
how I wake him up every morning. I throw cold water on him and I say, "Hey, what did I tell you, son?"
Yeah. You just turn on David Goggins' podcast. And
second place, first in the line of losers.
Yep. All right, y'all. Any final chat questions? We've run about 10 minutes long, but me and Paul, we just have such a good time. We can't help ourselves.
Sometimes when we're cooking, you just can't get us out of the kitchen.
Exactly. So I think we're good here, man. Like we said, feel confident, be brave, go out in public and say that you think Texas will beat Mississippi State, Jack.
Yes.
Don't be scared. And then, of course, this will be the hilarious trap game that we are anticipating, but not anticipating from Mississippi State at all.
Yeah, I don't think we have, when you're actually really good and pretty mature, there's not a lot of trap games. That's not really a thing. That's a thing when you're mediocre.
Yeah, I agree. All right, y'all. That was a lot of fun. And then tomorrow we will be back at 9:30 a.m. Me and Ian. We will be talking schematics. And that's always a lot of fun. We go more and more into the actual on the field stuff. And we appreciate you guys for hanging out. And you guys have a good day. Hook 'em.